Hello and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Sal. Today we will be talking about the latest developments in Gaza. Israel has unilaterally, ended its ceasefire agreement with Hamas that had been in place since January 19, 2025 by launching its latest airstrikes in Gaza, killing more than 200 innocent Palestinians, including women and children. And according to reports, more than 48,000 innocent Palestinians have been killed so far in this Israel's war on Gaza. When we talk about Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu, his office has claimed that the latest strikes were ordered because talks to extend the ceasefire and to secure the release of captives were stalled. And reports also indicate that President Trump was taken in confidence and was consulted before the attack took place. Meanwhile, Gaza is of course facing a humanitarian crisis because since March the 2nd, Israel has blocked all the essential aid that was reaching to Gaza. When we talk about, of course, situation in Gaza that is worsening each day, in today's program we will be talking about the efforts that are needed at this point in time by the regional and international players for ceasefire, and also what needs to be done by the mediators as the world is looking in concern. To discuss this and more, we have a very eminent panel of guests with us today. We are joined in the studios by Ms. Naela Chohan, who is former ambassador. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Dr. Tughrul Jamin, who is senior analyst. Welcome to the program. We're joined online by former ambassador Jihar Baloch. Welcome to the program. And we're also joined by Mr. Syed Basim Raza, who is research associate with CLAS. Welcome to the program. Ambassador Naela, let me start with you. Of course, when we look at this situation, as of now, Israel has unilaterally ended its ceasefire agreement that was, of course, put in place in January 19. This is now being described by different reports as one of the biggest attacks by Israel so far. What's your take on this situation as it's unfolding? And how do you see this is going to be unfolding in coming days?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to your program. This is a very grave situation. As you rightly pointed out, this ceasefire had been under negotiation for quite some time, and it's only recently that it was agreed upon with US mediation. And then Israel unilaterally decided to end the ceasefire. Netanyahu's visit to United States, where they came up with this idea of having Gaza as a holiday resort, having Trump Gaza there. Meanwhile, you must take into account the immediate action that MBS took. There was an emergency meeting of the Arab League, yes, and they came up with their document reiterating the UN Security Council resolutions which call upon withdrawal of Israel from all the occupied territory of Palestine to the 1967 borders. This was then further endorsed in OIC. Now it remains to be seen how these new developments, because the American Mr. Trump also, President Trump, decided to directly negotiate with Hamas. And his representative there, when he came back, he said, they are very decent people. They have genuine issues, which shocked Israel because they thought that they were demonizing Hamas, they were demonizing Palestinians just with this strategy to take over their land.
But at the same time, of course, Israel was not happy with direct negotiations between US and Hamas.
Obviously, because that would expose their lie. Because when the Americans spoke to Hamas, they realized they were normal human beings with genuine issues. They are calling for a permanent ceasefire. They don't want temporary ceasefire because soon as the hostages are exchanged, Israel would start its atrocities against, which Hamas didn't want. But the Israelis were upset because their whole story that they had woven in front of the Americans was being exposed when direct negotiations started. Now, it remains to be seen how far they can carry this through. International Criminal Court has already warrant against Netanyahu. You have seen that the Philippines president has been arrested because of the warrant that International Criminal Court had against him.
And this is kind of unprecedented.
No, that's the way they go. But Netanyahu also has a warrant against him, which they reject, and they reject the legitimacy of International Criminal Court. So do the Americans. So, with all these violations of international law, international institutions, and this greater Israel concept is a disaster not only for the neighboring countries, eventually it will not allow Israel to go where it wants to.
Let me take the same point to Dr. Tughrul. Dr. Tughrul, what's your take on this, especially regarding the latest developments? This attack and these attacks are considered one of the largest attacks of Israel, and also keeping in mind the points that Ambassador Saiba alluded to about direct negotiations between US and Hamas, and now Israel is saying that Israel consulted the White House before these attacks. This is a very complex situation. What's your understanding
Mariam,
of
I
it?
think there is nothing complex about it. I saw it coming. Israelis and the Americans are very much in cahoots with each other. The state of Israel would never exist if the Americans would not support them.
Because they are getting all the military aid from them.
They're getting all the military aids, they're getting all the moral support from them. And you talked about Netanyahu being caught by ICC, he'll never be caught. He has the backing of the Americans. And they get to hoots for international law. They do what they feel like doing. They can tell the Ukrainians to go to hell if they want to do that. They've dished them. It's against all morals and all ethics. They have dished the Europeans. But insofar as Gaza is concerned, I think they want to ethnically cleanse this area. There's no doubt about it. 250 million people were displaced, and as soon as these people started coming back, they've been again bombed. And as I saw on PTV News just now, most of these deaths from the recent bombardment, 300 of them, is of children and women. So it's criminal. It's these are small words. And
so do you think they were just gaining time when we talk about the ceasefire agreement that was being discussed since May last year in Joe Biden's government, and was of course in place in January 19, 2025?
Yes,
but
I don't think they
what's the long-term military and political strategy when it comes to Israel?
Israel wants Hamas destroyed. I am absolutely sure about it. They don't want any person who's anyhow connected with Hamas to stay alive. They will kill them. That is what their policy is. And I think there is a genuine need for the Muslims, for the Arabs to now support the Palestinians with material help. I think they can send a OIC force there, Global Protection Force over there, and under the responsibility to protect. It is an agreed principle under in the UN. It has been legislated, which says that if you want to stop genocide, or if you want to stop massacre, you can send forces, whether the host government allows it or not. So I think it's time to do that. Otherwise, we'll keep on repeating the same things, the same platitudes.
And we have witnessed that in the past.
It's been happening.
There are a lot of examples of that.
They will continue to kill them mercilessly. I feel ashamed being a human being that I am witnessing this Holocaust in my lifetime. It's worse than a Holocaust. So it's got to stop, and it won't stop with merely passing statements. The Muslim world, the Arab world has to do something about it.
And we'll discuss about the Arab League summit later in the show. But Ambassador Jia Baloch, coming to you, Of course, Dr. Tugral said that this is very unfortunate and concerning that we are witnessing before our eyes this genocide that is happening today in Gaza. But when we look at the statements that are coming from Prime Minister Netanyahu's office, he claims and he mentions that there was a lack of progress in the ceasefire talks. In your view, is this a valid reason considering the broader context?
Mariam, let's not we can't let them hide behind the words and phrases. First of all, because the three war objectives that Netanyahu declared when he initiated his genocidal war, number one was to completely eliminate Hamas. He failed. He said, "I'll get my first one." Of course, was to really get the hostages released. They were released conditionally on the actual conditions laid down by Hamas, not by what Israel wanted. So in these two accounts, it failed. Third, it said it will secure the borders between Gaza and Israel so that it never happens again. They said never again. They failed on that as well. So I think it is frustrated Netanyahu. It's Netanyahu who sees his game is up. And it is, yes, we do see the bloodshed, we do see the genocide, but it has now gone beyond a point where even the victim says that how far can they go? So in my view, this is the last chapter of Netanyahu's history. I think it will be a matter of days that he'll have to go. And when he goes, only then we can expect some peace to prevail, some humanity to come back, and some peace to prevail in the Middle East. Short of that, whatever he do, whatever international community does, whatever the Arab League comes up with proposals, rebuilding Gaza, and all these platitudes that we hear from the corridors of international power, local power, regional powers will be just mere words. What has happened today when they have violated, Israel has violated, is there any tangible action taken? Should not the Arabs who have diplomatic relations should have recalled their diplomats or expelled the Israeli ambassadors from their capitals?
That brings me to my next question, Mr. G.R. Baloch, that of course with this sudden collapsing of a ceasefire agreement that was agreed upon on 19th of January 2025, how do you see the regional dynamics are going to be changing in coming days?
Well, changing of regional dynamics would take a lot of other elements in the dynamics that we are looking at that. But what has happened is that at least the credibility of those powers, Egypt and Qatar, definitely have been undermined. That whatever they do, it can't be. So now if we look at how it will manifest in terms of escalation of rivalries within the region, obviously it would. I mean, we see, I don't know if it is a coincidence or it really so happens that Israel goes to Gaza and kills more than 350 Palestinians in cold blood for no reason at all, on the pretext that, oh, we want to find out some of the leaders, Hamas leaders, who are still hiding behind the human shield. And exactly the same day, we see extensive bombing of Yemeni Houthis, where again, in a matter of 12 hours or 24 hours, more than 350 innocent civilians have been killed. What is this? So there is this, always I say there's a Zionist scheme where they want to really expel the Palestinians, create that greater Israel, but that is again a dream. I hope it doesn't in our lifetime come to be true, but they really are working very, very hard. But they are getting a response of the determination of the Palestinians. They are getting the highest sense of sacrifice for their freedom, the Palestinians. But what is lacking is the commitment of the Arab world. What is lacking is the Muslim world. What is lacking is where is the conscience of the international community, which pretends to be based on human values, on moral values, on rule of law. I think all has been torn apart and we are living in a rule of jungle. So how to explain it? It is hard to explain, Maria.
Right, it's very hard to explain. And coming to you, Mr. Basim, what's your take on this collapsing of ceasefire agreement, and also the claims that these Israeli strikes were in part a response to Hamas's refusal repeated refusal to release captives? How do you see the interplay between hostage negotiations and military escalation in the conflict?
First of all, thank you so much. When we talk about, what is the pretext given by the Israeli regime, they're going to say every single time, whenever they kill people, whenever they inflict brutality upon the Palestinians, they're going to produce such pretexts. The real goal actually is an ultimate genocide. Now, when we come to genocide, it's not about just eliminating Hamas. It's not about just killing the militants or the people who are capable of inflicting damage upon Israel. It's basically complete genocide. Now, when we come to genocide, the genocide is actually not defined by just killing people. They want to displace the Palestinians from the Palestinian land. They want the Palestinians to move somewhere else. Fortunately, the Egyptians and Jordanians, they're not ready to accept over 1 million Palestinians right now. So the goal was actually this: if the Palestinians and Hamas, they agreed to evacuate Gaza Strip the very first day, these guys, they would have not killed a single soul. The goal actually is to capture land, create a greater Israel. That's actually the goal. So all these pretexts, whatever they try to tell the world, this is complete lies. These are complete lies. Complete lies.
These are complete lies. And Ambassador Saba, when we talk about these recent escalations, the reports are coming, and White House has also confirmed that US President Trump was consulted before these attacks. Ahead of the attack, and US envoy Steve Witkoff was involved in ceasefire discussions earlier as well. What does this tell us about US foreign policy at this point in time regarding Middle East?
US foreign policy towards Middle East is at this moment fluid. President Trump has good relationship with MBS. President Trump had assured that he would end the war in Palestine. So we have to take it with a pinch of salt what consultations were done by Israelis, what actual information had they given to the Americans, because Israelis are never truthful. And I agree with the preceding panelist that this is all a pretext. It's not about Hamas. I don't agree that they are looking for Hamas. They are really trying to implement their concept of Greater Israel. And the boundaries of Greater Israel is always changing. They are basically thinking of the Abrahamic land which they claim as their own, which includes Syria, which includes Jordan, which includes Lebanon. I've been saying this in your programs earlier on also, that it is a vast land that they intend to occupy. So the neighboring countries have to be very careful with how Israel is expanding itself.
And Israel's own analysts have been saying and are now claiming and saying that this was a plan all along by Prime Minister Netanyahu, and one of the reasons was to save his own government. What's your take on that?
Yes, that is a big thing, because Israel also claims to be a democracy, but it's basically an ideology, and they had their elections which due to war Mr. Netanyahu has been postponing. He had been very unpopular at the time that the hostages were taken. Now with the ceasefire, it has 3 phases. The first phase was the exchange of hostages,
Yes.
and then it was vacating the Palestinian land. So, Israel, just as the first phase was near completion, called for extension of phase 1, because they want to take out all the hostages, so then they can eliminate all the Palestinians. Palestine protested that this was not part of the agreement. It should have been as per schedule. So, now they are wanting to expand, take over the whole land of not only Palestine, but they will also take over other lands that in their view form part of Greater Israel.
And Dr. Tugrul, how significant is the renewal of this war on these neighboring countries like Lebanon, Egypt and Jordan?
Mariam, for one, Lebanon has been militarily neutralized. The new government is also installed at the Americans' pleasure. The Hezbollah has lost its military leadership, the top leadership. So, Lebanon is more or less important, militarily important, and it's only a matter of time when the Israelis go in there. As far as Syria is concerned, the Israelis have already occupied the Golan Heights, and although we know that the new Syrian president or interim president Ahmad al-Shara had a nom de guerre which said that he was Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, which showed his relationship with the Golan Heights. But they've lost the Golan Heights altogether. That demilitarized zone is no more there. So Israel is slowly nibbling into the territories of other states. Whether they can do the same with Egypt or not, I'm not sure. But the Philadelphia corridor is
going to be looking like how regional stability is going to be looking like in coming days,
it's going to be
with Israel blocking the aid since March the 2nd and now resuming attacks. How these countries are going to be affected, and also we cannot forget the non-state actors in these neighboring countries.
Middle East, we know, has been unstable for a very, very long time, and whatever Israel is doing now is going to add fuel to fire. And Israel has always been very, very aggressive. Perhaps we forget that there was a monster known as Ariel Sharon who killed innocent people in the refugee camps of Sabra and Shatila, and there have been so many more. So this is not one person. No, one Netanyahu would go and another Netanyahu would come in his place. So this is going to go on, and I don't see any end to fighting, because perhaps the Israelis or whoever the Israeli elite are think that they can only survive if they kill all the Palestinians, because it's the Palestinians who are fighting them now without any weapons, with their crude missiles. It's only the Jordanians are not fighting, the Egyptians are not fighting, and one of the worthy panelists said that what have the Arabs done? Have they recalled their ambassadors? Have they expelled the Israeli diplomats? We know that in the Middle East, Israeli tourists roam around in the Gulf territories buying stuffs from their malls, etc. So there is no check on them. They know that they have, at least in spirit, neutralized all the Arabs. The Arabs don't want to fight with them. All their leaders, all their princes, all their sheikhs, they have made their peace with them, if I am permitted to say so. They have sold their souls to them. They have struck a Faustian deal with them.
Right, right. But Mr. G.R. Balut, we have also seen the efforts on from these Arab nations and also U.S. Envoys negotiating with both the parties. How do you view that, and how do you see the effectiveness of these diplomatic efforts in coming days in the midst of these, of course, exaggerated and extended violence?
Yeah, despite the fact of this brutal display of savagery by Israel, violation of all norms between the states and even basic human civilizational norms, I think we as the rational creatures, the human beings, cannot lose hope. We cannot. So I think if now I'd like to look at the process from that angle, we have to keep the hope. We have to keep hoping that there will be some one day rational thinking come into play. Yes, I think Arab states, the important ones, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, have played their role. And they came up with good, strong statements. And I think apparently there is a hypothesis that perhaps Trump too wants to be a peacemaker, and perhaps he is dreaming of a Nobel Peace. I hope he dreams of a Nobel Prize and does really take concrete and realistic measures to stop this genocide. I think there is also a self-interest of Israel, US, and other states that this cycle of violence must stop before it really engulfs the entire region. If it really engulfs the entire region, it will impact the security and the global, in fact, economy, which is already in turmoil because whatever is happening what is emanating from Washington, the tariff war. So now, if you have tariff war on the one side and you have you put this strategically important Middle East under fire, the oil supply and all other supply chains which pass through the Arabian Sea to the Pacific.
Yeah, but at the same time, Mr. Jia Baloch, how do you view the strategic timing of this attack when, of course, we are witnessing that negotiations are taking place in Cairo?
My own analysis is that it is Netanyahu's frustration. There is no big thinking there. Of course, there is a naked his brutal thinking of cleansing the entire Gaza from the Palestinians and from Gaza and beyond, and creating that greater Israel. But I think it's more frustration than any strategy, at least in this renewal of this killing of Palestinians. So we hope that the diplomacy will come into operation. The Arab countries would speak to their counterparts in the US. And in fact, what we read in the papers was also that even the first agreement that was reached between Hamas and Israel was on really, Witkoff had to really push hard on Netanyahu to agree to that three-phase peace negotiation. So we are hoping that again it will be the peace three-phase peace plan will be will be restarted. They'll move on to the second phase, and we were actually anticipating there will be difficulties in terms of starting the second phase of this peace agreement, because this is where the rub is, that Israel doesn't want to withdraw its troops from Gaza. And it is creating this new renewal of the fighting to create an excuse to still retain some of the army. So I think this will have to be then probably negotiated, discussed between the guarantors who guaranteed these. And then three were the guarantors of this agreement, that is USA, Egypt, and some other Middle Eastern, Jordan, and other Middle Eastern, Qatar, and other.
Yeah, but Mr. Jia Baloch, what led to the breakdown of these three-phase ceasefire agreement that you mentioned about?
Again, I'll have to sort of assume that this is naked ambition. I think it is again their viciousness of Israel, especially the Netanyahu's regime, the brutal regime, that they don't want to withdraw their troops from Gaza. Second phase is the most critical and is the most, I think, challenging phase to achieve, because that would have given Hamas a new lease of life. And coupled with that was the Arab plan for reconstruction of Gaza. That could have also given them some kind of a call that now here the Arabs are also coming up with their own plan to rebuild it. So there will be a stake of the Arabs. It will have it's a huge plan of $50 billion, and not on a very long term, like within 3 to 5 years, they wanted to implement it. So I think that is again a threat that probably Israel would see it. And in fact, the shoreline on Gaza is the strategic point that they want to occupy it. Israel doesn't want to give the seashore to the Palestinians. It wants to keep that under their control. Of course, there are also oil deposits. That is another point which some of the analysts, they say that perhaps they are looking at the offshore oil reserves in the sea that they want to exploit in the future. So I think it's a viciousness, it is narrowness.
Right, and Mr. Basim, how do you view the role of international bodies at this point in time, especially when we talk about United Nations Security Council? What concrete measures are needed to address the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding before our eyes, and also the collapse of this ceasefire agreement?
Okay, first of all, I would like to add a point or two about the American foreign policy towards Middle East. So when we talk about particularly the American foreign policy towards Middle East, there is enough evidence that dictates that the American foreign policy towards Middle East is directed by Israel. It's not the other way around. There were some recent revelation of some documents. In 1995, Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, he wrote a book. It was called Fighting Terrorism. In that book, he predicted the World Trade Center's attack, the 9/11. In 2002, Netanyahu, he met with the Congress and he convinced them to attack Iraq. So, you know, the whole foreign policy, when we think about that US is going to get into it and US is going to stop it, no, that's not going to happen. Americans are working in Middle East on the bidding of Israel. Israel wants Americans to fight with Iran. Israel attacked Iraq for the sake of Israel. United States attacked Syria, the Operation Timber Sycamore, it was called. They attacked Syria for the sake of Israel. They did the similar things to a democratically elected leader in Egypt just because of Israel. So the thing that actually here is notable here is that we don't need to see this, that US influences Israel, it's the other way around. Now coming to the international organizations.
But my additional question in this regard is that don't you think that US foreign policy is now evolving during Trump 2.0 in the office? Because we see direct negotiations between the White House and Hamas, and of course, they are trying to convey this message that Israel is not dictating them.
Okay, I don't believe that the foreign policy of United States is going to change under Trump. It's all about semantics when it comes to Trump. The foreign policy in Middle East specifically, there is a huge Israel lobby inside United States. AIPAC spends hundreds of millions of dollars each election, and then they take the turnover in terms of trillions of dollars of support and aid. Very good business, by the way. But every single presidency, every single government, every single administration since 1959, no one changed the foreign policy towards Israel ever. And Trump, I don't believe that he's going to, bring some peace here. Okay, Trump is doing some, talks about peace in case of Ukraine war, but when it comes to Israel and Palestine war, he's not doing that, and they're not going to change that. The influence is massive, extreme. If we talk about, there was a recent study done by Brown University. It said that since 1959, US spent $7 trillion on direct aid to Israel or conduction of Israel's bidded wars. Secondly, Trump, since his assumption of office, it's not even 3 months. He gave $12 billion worth of weapons to Israel and $4 billion additional military aid. So I don't believe that he's going to, create some peaceful sort of a scenario in this particular war or the overall Middle Eastern region.
This also contradicts with Trump's ambitions for the Nobel Peace Prize. But coming to my earlier question regarding the role of United Nations Security Council and what concrete measures are needed at this point in time in the context of escalation of the conflict.
Okay, when we particularly talk about Trump getting a Nobel, the very reason that Trump is extraordinarily invested in Ukraine and he's ready to ditch the whole of Europe for that sake, the whole of NATO for that sake, it's evident. He's going to get a Nobel from there. And to be very honest, a Nobel, I don't think to the pure scholarship, the Nobel Peace Prize means anything now. Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize. He waged war all over Middle East. Aung San Suu Kyi, she got a Nobel Peace Prize. Now, coming to the second point about the United Nations. United Nations would have been able to do something if they had some instituted power in them, if US was standing by them. There's only one power because of which Israel is fighting this war. If the United States was not backing Israel, Israel would have lost in the first day. It's very simple. So if US is not backing the international organizations, because in the end, in this contemporary scenario today, we have came to know that the idea of liberal institutionalism, that the institutions, they're going to do something about such stuff, it is fading away slowly and slowly. And Israel is not listening either to the UNSC or to the International Criminal Court or any other international organizations for that matter.
And Ambassador Sahiba, when we talk about this renewed conflict, of course, we have earlier discussed as well that these are now documented war crimes. So in coming days, how do you think that this is going to be playing out in terms of legal issues on global stage?
You see, I agree with Bassam. When you asked me about foreign policy, I deliberately said that's the difference between an expert and a diplomat. That I would not go into those
Always
details.
be optimistic, yeah.
Optimistic, and also you don't go into those intricate details as a diplomat. The point is, at least you do go, but you don't state them. The point is that Mr. Trump is very unpredictable. So while US policy, yes, I agree, has been controlled, remote controlled, but Mr. Trump has a mind of his own. While as yet he is following Netanyahu's agenda, that's very clear. But the fact that for the first time they had direct contact with Hamas was unprecedented. And as far as international law is concerned, law is as good as its implementation. So if the member states are not implementing it, then its effectivity is very limited. So moral pressure, they have no morality, they have no moral, so it doesn't matter to them. But the resilience of the Palestinian people is very important. Then you can see how Houthis are also supporting. And if Israel doesn't stop from its expansionist and genocidal activity, they will unite the Arab world, which was not as united before. So it may create a big, reaction, which at this moment is not building up to the level we need to have. But if it crosses a threshold, I'm sure there will be, and the fact that the Arab League had an emergency meeting, yes, and the OIC also had supported or endorsed the Arab League proposal, peace proposal.
And
that
what's your take on that, of course, plan? Because we were discussing the Gaza reconstruction plan, and now we are back to square one.
Yes, we are. You see, with Israel, it's always to and fro, because it never adheres to any commitment that it makes. It's only one agenda, which is expansionism. But this peace plan proposed by OIC now, initiated by Arab League, is very important. It will have its validity once Israel is controlled, and that I agree with Bassam that it depends on how the Americans play it out, how President Trump plays it out, who also has good links with MBS, and MBS has a lot of investments in United States also. So, it's a very interesting circle that is developing. So, let's see where the buck stops.
Right, it is very interesting circle, but when we look at the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, Dr. Togrul, of course, more than 1 million children are struggling to survive today in Gaza because of the shortage of basic necessities like water and food, and of course we know that organizations like UNRWA are not able to work there anymore. So what needs to be done by the international community at this point in time to of course help those people, especially children and women?
Mariam, I think the entire world is going to change. There's going to be a time when multilateralism as we understand is going to undergo a massive change. I don't know how long United Nations is going to survive in these conditions. Trump has already pulled out of WHO,
Yes.
and WHO was running a lot of programs in Palestine. Also, the polio program was there, and polio, unlike Pakistan, is not abhorred. People, despite war, have been taking their children to take polio drops. So I think diplomatic niceties have been thrown out. There is time for newer forces to come and occupy the space. Trump is predictable. People say he's unpredictable. There's a method to his madness. You don't have to worry that he's not predictable. He's very much predictable. He's doing what he always wanted to do. He's throwing everybody out who dissented with him in internal politics, and he's also actually slapping in the face of world leaders whom he does not like. You've seen the treatment that he has meted out to Zelensky. Do you do that? So if somebody comes to
Yes.
your house, is this the way you treat a head of the state? Even although he's heavily dependent on you, he actually insulted him. I don't think any head of state in his right mind is now going to go and kiss his ring, which everybody has been rushing to do so. So there's a method to the madness. He understands it. He is very much with Israel. You know, the Abrahamic Accord was his making.
Of course.
His son-in-law Jared Kushner is a Jew. He's posted his father as an envoy to where Madam was an ambassador. You were ambassador in France. So Mr. Kushner the elder is now the ambassador over there.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is that there should be a change in multilateralism. There should be newer organizations. Perhaps China or Russia can take the lead. I don't think they want to take the lead. They say that let America do the dirty work. Why should we get our hands dirty in world international politics? So, but I think there is a time for change, and this is end of times. That's what Fukuyama said. I think it's the end of times. What is happening?
Right. And very briefly, Mr. G.R. Baloch, we are of course running out of time. Your last comments on what needs to be done regarding durable peace in a context of this ongoing violence in Gaza.
I think there is obviously what I would be saying, maybe a textbook sentence. Really, we have to go back to the rule-based world order. We have to go back and support universally accepted humanitarian, moral, legal, and diplomatic norms. We have to collaborate and cooperate, a world which cooperates and collaborates, not confronts. In fact, the very survival of the human being depends on cooperation and collaboration. If some of the major players have decided to go all alone, probably it will be a very short dream for them. It will be a very short walk. I mean, that's my, my humble way, my understanding of the way the march of the history goes. So the other last point is that Palestinians are on the right side of the history. Irrespective of the sacrifices they gave, the history is with them, the time is with them. Yes, the cruel cruelty that is being inflicted on them is unimaginable. But I'm sure a day will come that these Palestinians will have freedom, will have dignity, will have their state. And that is our prayer, that is our wish.
And that is our prayer, that we, of course, witness those days in before our eyes in coming days. Thank you very much, Mr. G.R. Baloch, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Syed Basim Raza, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Ambassador Naela Chohan, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Tagru Jameen, for joining us in today's program. That's all from today's discussion. Thank you for joining.